Good evening,
Well,
everyone, and welcome to tonight's final edition of our workshop uh, planning sessions, and third in a series where we're helping you develop your business plan for the 10th annual business plan competition. I can't believe it's been 10 years, but it's been exciting. Please give a warm welcome to Angela Kivas, our project director. All right.
Hi, everyone. Good
And
evening.
our official gatekeeper, who's admitting everybody into tonight's workshop. So good person to know. So this is probably the most important of all the workshops. We're going to be getting into the financials and the legal structure that you need to consider. And I can tell you that this is going to now be our 10th business plan competition. In the previous 9, the financials has always been the weakest part of the business plans that we've seen. So I encourage you to really spend some time on this and to get to know your numbers. I will get into some more details here and some questions that you can anticipate from the judges that may be helpful. But if you don't know your numbers, game over. All right. You're not going to get a lot of confidence in the judges in your presentation because they're not going to feel like you really understand your business. You'll notice if you ever watch Shark Tank, they really drill down into the numbers with the Shark Tank contestants. And if they don't know them, then that is a big, big problem. And the sharks say, I'm out. You really don't understand your business. And I'm not investing a boatload of money in something that you don't understand. Shaniqua, quick question.
Yes, I'm sorry. Is this recording going to go out? I think I would hate to ask you to repeat the beginning of what you said, but you kind of cut out. So
Yep.
If it's going to come out, I'll wait.
No, go ahead. I could probably say it better. So go ahead and ask your question. But yeah, it is being recorded for everybody, and we will be sending it out. But go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, so you were talking about the numbers and the I want to say panelist, but the judges.
Yes.
Can you just explain that again? What they're looking for?
Yeah, I'll get into it more as we go.
Okay.
But my point is to really know your numbers, so that when they do ask you questions about your business, that you're able to give them some hard numbers, and you're not saying, it's about this, it's about that. No, you want to be specific. Your costs, your projections, and why you are projecting the numbers that you are. We'll get into that a little bit more. All right. So the way it's going to work here this evening, we're going to cover both the legal aspect, which I'll cover first. Then we'll get into the financials, and then we'll wrap up with a review of the business plan template that you're going to be working. And so then you'll be able to see everything as it comes together as we've been working through these last couple of workshops, and how you can use the information we've been discussing in your business plan template. Everybody will be using the same template and submitting that. You'll get a link from Angela Kivas, our project director, on how to do that and to submit your business plan. So just a reminder, we have about 186 people who are participating in this year's competition. Not all usually submit their business plans. Last year we had more. We had over 200 and 44 actually submitted business plans. That was actually a record number. And we encourage people, even if you're not ready to submit a business plan, to participate in these workshops anyway, so that when you are ready, that you can then go on to submit your business plan, or go ahead and start working on it. But it may be a couple years down the road before you actually participate in the competition. Nothing wrong with that. We encourage people to submit their business plans this year for this year's competition, or if you're going to wait for a couple years, that's fine too. But we encourage people to participate in these workshops. All right. So without further ado, let me get started here with you. And we're going to start first with the legal side of the business. And you should have gotten a worksheet, which I probably should have showed you first, that we're going to work through that looks something like this. So if you go into your email, and hopefully you had a chance to print this out, I encourage you to print this out and then fold it along those dotted lines, because we're going to first talk about the left side, the first three columns there, sole proprietor, limited partnership, and then C-corp, and then we'll get into the other three on the right side. So this will be in the PowerPoint as well, but I encourage you to go ahead and fill these empty boxes in. I did that on purpose to make this a little more interactive for you. So hopefully you had a chance to print these out and have them in front of you, because you'll want to start working through these and taking some notes that I think you'll find very, very helpful on the differences for the different types of legal structures for a business and why you should go with one over another and the rationale behind it. So let me jump into this for you. All right, so we're going to compare the different types of legal structures here to determine, okay, who's in charge, how you're going to handle the money, how the decision making is done in different types of legal structures, the legal protections each one is offered, how you're going to divvy up the profits at the end of the day, and what happens if you get hit by a bus. Usually you don't survive those, so what happens to the business upon your death? And this is one of the two things that we can count on in life: taxes and death. So we'll talk about these things. So again, if you have this printed out in front of you, the yellow portions or they're highlighted, or what we're going to be filling in as we go. Just fold that paper in half, because we're just going to look at the left side first with the first three columns, and then we'll flip over to the other side. But we're going to get into each one of these, starting with the sole proprietorship and looking at the ownership. Who owns this business? So for a sole proprietor, it's just as it sounds, where you are that owner. And you don't have to do really anything. You don't have to file with the state. You're treating this as your business, but you have to make sure that you're still going to be paying taxes on your revenue. You can't just be a sole proprietor, start collecting money from people, selling things, and not expect the IRS to come knocking on your door. All right. So this is very, very important. Don't want you to get into any legal issues. And yes, if you're starting to make quite a bit of money and your bank and you're seeing the banks are starting to see some huge spikes in your accounts, and there's no way to account for it, they're going to assume the worst. So it's good that you have your business set up in a legal structure. Now, the pros of being a sole proprietor is you are the boss. You answer to nobody. The downside is that you need to then set up things up so that you're able to pay your taxes. And at the end of the day, there's no one else who's responsible but you. So if you want a pay raise, well, you got to look in the mirror. If you're not happy with the way the business is going, you got to look in the mirror. So it's all you. That's the downside. But that could also be a positive. Now, in a partnership, you have a couple people, and usually you see this with doctors or a dentist, where you may have like an oral surgeon, you have a dental surgeon, you have a regular dentist, and they're working together, but each one has a different specialty. And what they're doing is they're saying, okay, instead of me sending clients to somebody else, I'll send it to somebody else who's part of my business, and we'll all reap the benefits. So the pros there is that all of you own that business. The downside is that it is limited as to those people that you choose to work with. Now for a C corporation, so this is typically like when you're investing in Amazon, Ford, GM, all the publicly traded companies you see, those are all C corps. And so the owners are us as stockholders when we're investing in that business. So we all are part of that ownership. We're not telling them we don't agree with this marketing strategy, but instead we're electing board of directors who are then overseeing the company and hiring the CEO to manage the business. The downside is that we don't have a lot of control over what the company does. We're pretty much voting with our wallet in terms of whether we choose to invest or not. Now, in terms of capitalization, raising money for a sole proprietor, this is really difficult because it's only you. Nobody else is going to be contributing any money here. For a limited partnership, let's go back to our dental organization where we have several different types of dental practices. Well, we can have each one say, okay, each one's going to contribute $100,000 to the business. Now we're able to raise money a little bit easier because we have other partners who will be contributing some money. For a C Corp, all you do is you're issuing stock. So if you want to raise more money, you issue more stock. You got to be careful with that as a publicly traded company because you don't want to issue too much stock that then devalues the value of the stock. So it's a great way to raise money, usually for companies that are trying to grow fast, that they will issue stock as a C Corp and they're able to raise the money then to grow. In terms of voting, how the decisions are made, for a sole proprietor, there is no vote. It's you. That's it. For a limited partnership, it'll be the partners would each have a vote, a say in the business and what's happening with it, where it's going. For a C Corp, you have the stockholders who are voting, and all they're doing is voting to elect boards of directors to serve to oversee the company. In terms of liability for a sole proprietorship, there is none. The liability is unlimited. There's no protections, is what I was trying to say. So if you have a business, let's say we have a restaurant and we are a sole proprietor and somebody gets sick and dies and sues us claiming that we were negligent, well, we could lose our restaurant, we could lose our home, we could lose our savings, everything. We could lose everything because there is no protection. The liability is treated as you or the business as a sole proprietor. Therefore, everything you own is liable. For a limited partnership, just as it sounds, the liability is limited to the partners and the business assets, not the personal assets. And that's the difference with a sole proprietor, is that your personal assets are liable. For a C Corp, if I'm invested in GM and GM makes a car that blows up, well, I'm not liable. I'm just an investor. I wasn't involved in that decision-making, building the car, so I am protected as a stockholder. And all the employees are usually protected too, unless there's some type of criminal negligence, then that's a whole different story. In terms of profit distribution, so sole proprietor is going to receive all that money from the company. So all the profit that goes back to the owner. For a limited partnership, that would be distributed among all the partners. And then for the C Corp, if there's earnings to be paid out, they may pay it out in the form of dividends. So you see a dividend check. You often see that with slow growth type of companies, like a Ford or a Daimler Chrysler, who aren't able to distribute or see their value of their stock grow as quickly as, say, a Google or another company. So they would choose to pay out some earnings in terms of dividends, or take that earnings, put it back into the company in hopes of increasing the value of the stock. In terms of taxation, so for a sole proprietor, is individual tax. That money is flowing through to you as the business owner. So the taxation is treated just like income would be for any other job. That profit at the end of the day from the business is treated as income. For a limited partnership, so again, it'll be individual for each one of those partners. That money would be distributed to each of the partners. Let's say it's 33% each. Then they're paying taxes on that 33% that they earned in profit. For a C-corp, there's a double taxation that you often hear about. You have the dividends that are paid out to stockholders. That is one form of taxation that occurs. So if I'm invested in Daimler Chrysler, they send me a dividend check, I have to pay a capital gains tax on that dividend check. And then there's also the corporate tax that Daimler Chrysler has to pay as well. So you often hear about a double taxation that occurs. Now for the life of the legal structure, so for a sole proprietor, upon death, you are the owner, you are the business, that business would die with you. For the partners, it would terminate upon that individual owner's death. So let's say that we have a practice with 5 other dentists. One of them dies, it would continue with then the 4 remaining partners. For a C-corp, that Steve Jobs dies at Apple, Apple doesn't die with it, the business continues on. Let me just pause there and see if there's any questions about these items for sole proprietorship, limited partnership, or C-corp. All right. So if you have that sheet in front of you, what I encourage you to do is flip the page. We're going to talk
And
about
there's a question. Equalizer.
Go ahead, Shaniqua.
So just I'm following. For example, my business is registered as a single member LLC. That doesn't, I always get confused. That doesn't necessarily fall under the rules of sole proprietorship. It falls under, how does that work?
Yeah, so that would be an LLC, and that's what we're going to talk about next.
I'm sorry.
Yep, no problem. But yeah, and for most people, the reason why I have your logo here, that's really what you want to set your business up as for most of you. It's an easy way to do it, and I'll go through the reasons why. But yeah, whether you're a single partnership or a single owner, or you have a partnership, it's usually best to set it up as an LLC, limited liability corporation. But let me walk through these, and then we'll see if there's some more questions. So let's we're looking at 3 here. We're looking at subchapter S corporations, nonprofits, and limited liability companies. So for subchapter S, you'll often hear that some individual companies will move to a subchapter S. First, you have to be established as a LLC before you can then move into a subchapter S. So for my consulting practice, for example, I was an LLC. Now I'm a subchapter S because there are some benefits in terms of taxation. But here's the criteria here for a subchapter S. For ownership, you can have up to 75 stockholders. So this is usually how a lot of car dealerships are set up, because most people don't have $20 or $30 million to be able to buy all the cars they need to put on their lot. So what they'll do is they'll have stockholders, investors, and they can have up to 75 for a subchapter S, where they're all contributing money to that dealership so that they can then have their what's called a floor plan, have all their cars on the lot. So that's one of the benefits of having a subchapter S. The capitalization, same as a partnership, because all those folks up to 75 are contributing some money to the business. And then all those stockholders have voting rights. The liability is limited to the assets of the business. It's not any personal assets. So none of those stockholders are liable personally. They're protected. And the only assets that would be liable would be the business assets. So let's say that we have somebody who drives off our lot and we find that we're liable upon selling the car, and they drove the car off the lot. The business owners, the car dealers, house, the kids' retirement plan, all that is protected. The profit distribution is then distributed among all the stockholders, and the taxation is treated as an individual tax. So just like for a sole proprietor or an LLC, the income is treated just like it would if we were working at a business and a company and we get a paycheck. That tax is treated as individual taxation. And then the life of the legal structure is unlimited. So if the car dealer dies or one of the stockholders die, the business will continue without them. For a nonprofit, no one is the owner. No one owns that nonprofit. So usually you'll have a board where everybody's serving as directors who are overseeing that nonprofit, but there is no ownership at the end of the day of a nonprofit. Very difficult to raise money. You're going to have to rely on grants, funding, donations. So it makes it a bit of a challenge for a nonprofit. And you often see nonprofits like credit unions are nonprofit. They operate like banks, but they're a nonprofit, so they don't pay any taxes. So oftentimes credit unions will be able to give better rates on deposits as well as loans because they're not taxed. And then United Way, and I'm sure many of you also give examples of other nonprofits that you're familiar with, but this is how they would be set up. In order to have a nonprofit, you must have a board of directors or trustees, and you have to have certain positions. Usually it's a president, a secretary, and a treasurer that you have to have. There have to be corporate bylaws that are then submitted to the state where you have to follow them. If you're not following them, you could lose your nonprofit status. And you have to have regular meetings with your board and have minutes that you're taking to show that you are meeting on a regular basis. The liability is limited. Your personal assets are not at risk. And there's no taxation. So that's one of the benefits of being a nonprofit. And then the life of the legal structure is unlimited. It's not going to die if you get hit by a bus. So the last one is really the one that most people want to set up, which is an LLC. And I'm going to go through the process of how to do that here shortly. But the owners are the people in that LLC. Shaniqua was talking about, in her case, it's just her. That's fine. She is the member, the sole member of that LLC. The capitalization, same as a partnership, is going to be whoever is part of that. You can raise money, but that's going to be it. It's just going to be those people who are part of the owners. There's no voting that's needed. There's no minutes. There's no requirements there. It is really, really easy to set up. Do not fall for the LegalZoom and they'll set up an LLC for you. It's easy. It'll take you literally about 10 minutes to do it. You can download the form from the state. The articles of incorporation will ask you your address, who are the owners, the title, and that's really it. And then every year you have to submit $300 in property taxes to the state in order to keep your LLC active. The liability here, this is the key, it's limited to the business assets. So in the example of that restaurant, if we were set up as an LLC, somebody got sick, somebody died, the only assets that are at risk are the business assets, not my savings account, not my car, not my house. It's my personal assets are protected because of the LLC, and that's just costing me $300 a year to file that with the state and continue to pay each year with the taxes to the state to keep that LLC active. The profit distribution is the same as a partnership. If it's just you, then that any income, net income, is treated as income to you. And then you're paying your individual taxes based on the net profit from the business. All right. So for example, let's say we earn $75,000 a year in our regular full-time job. We earn $25,000 net income from our business that we're starting. The net income, the $25,000, you would now have an individual tax rate of $100,000. So 75 plus the 25,000 that you earn from the business. Just keeping this simple. Your tax liability would be 100,000 instead of the 75,000 just from the business, and it would flow through to you, and then you would have to pay taxes on it just like you would on any other income that you're earning. Now, the life of the legal structure, if it's just you, you're the sole member, you get hit by a bus, the business dies. If there's other people as part of that LLC, then it'll continue without you. All right. So taxation flowing through to you. So this is usually the best way, the easiest way, the fastest way to set up your business legally. And it doesn't take much at all to do. And I'll walk you through the process of how to do it if you haven't already done it. So these are all the different pros and cons of setting up the various legal structures. But for most people who are participating in this competition, you'll want to set yourself up as an LLC. Let me pause here to see if there's any questions. And
there's 2 in the chat.
Yep. What about loans if something happens to you? Well, so here's a little secret that a lot of people don't know. And we're going to get into the funding here a little bit. But credit cards. So credit cards are usually the fastest, easiest way to get funding because they're not asking you for a business plan. They're not questioning you about your business. And it's usually a very easy, convenient way to get funding. So if you die, that is called a signature loan. MasterCard, Visa, Discover, they can't recover that money. That's why you're paying a little higher interest rate because there's a little more risk on their side. So if you die, you're not liable for that money that you earn from the credit cards. Now, for a loan to the business, well, if the loan is going to continue, then, or excuse me, if the business is going to continue without you, then yeah, you're still liable for that loan. So other questions here. Is it easy to add a member to LLC after? Yeah, very easy. You just change the articles of incorporation, add the new person, resubmit it, bada bing, bada boom, you're done. Are we taxed from the competition winnings? That is considered earnings. So we don't tax you, but there is a tax liability depending on your personal situation. So it really depends. But yeah, you're liable for that taxes because it's treated as earnings to your business. Can you do a nonprofit for this program? Absolutely. You can be a nonprofit. That's not a problem at all. Everything we're talking about here would apply to nonprofits. You just need to make sure that you're set up as a nonprofit. Member salary plus LLC profit equals individual income tax liability. Yes, exactly right. So now your salary is just income coming from the business, right? That is the profit. Think of it as you got this bucket of profit coming from your business. How you choose to spend that, you can put that back into the business, buy more equipment, so that would be an expense that would reduce your liability, or you could take it as income. But at the end of the day, you're going to be paying taxes on that profit. And that profit is treated as income to you unless you're putting it back into the business as expenses.
And if you put it back into the business, do you do that pre-tax?
Well, yeah. So it's now an expense. So let's say that this last month, we earned $5,000 from our business net profit. Well, I could choose to take that as income, or I say, well, I've always needed this other piece of equipment that's going to cost me $4,500. I could take that $5,000 I earned last month, buy the equipment for $4,500. Well, now my income liability is now $500. Does that make sense?
It does. Great. Thanks.
Yep. That's why you see a lot of businesses will buy a whole bunch of stuff in December because they're like, I got a lot of income here that I need to spend some money on. And so they may start buying equipment in December to try to reduce their tax liability. And reducing tax liability is perfectly legal, perfectly fine to do. Nothing wrong with it. Every business does it. No sense in paying Uncle Sam more than you have to. Is there a period of time to get a business credit card before it gets harder to be approved? You definitely want to shop around. And you'll see that there's some that reward points for credit cards, but we all know interest rates are going up, but they still have to be competitive. They still want your business, so we have that on our side. So I certainly encourage you to shop around. Will we cover how to build business credit? Here's the key. Everybody, and I'm going to go through this here shortly, you must separate your business credit from your personal credit. All right, that's how you build business credit. And what you'll do is you want to get a business credit card from your bank, from your lender, or from like Chase. They have some good business programs. And you start building your business credit just like you would with other credit cards. But now you are being rated based on your business credit, not your personal credit. Uline is another one. Provides a lot of office supplies. So they often offer business credit as well. And you'll see like trade credit that's offered, where you start building your business credit as well. And you got to make sure you're paying your bills on time, just like you would with your personal credit. All right, lots of good questions here, and we're going to be getting some. Shanika, question?
Yes, thank you. So while we're on this topic, so when you're applying for business credit, is there any that you would recommend for starter businesses? And then also, Is it when you're applying for the business credit, is it a way to keep it when you're applying that your credit is not being affected? So like you're not getting inquiries on your personal credit.
Yeah. So if you, the best thing to do is you want to set up your business account with your bank, and usually that's the place to start because there you can negotiate a little bit more. They want your business. So wherever you're doing your banking with your business, that's where you want to have your credit established. Get a business credit card. Now, when they do a credit check, in the beginning, they're going to also look at your personal credit too, because they don't have much to go on. But as you start building your business credit over the years, then they'll just be able to rely on that. And then it also depends on if you're going for a loan, how much of a loan. You may need to have your personal credit also to help support that justification for the business credit. But it's very important that you're separating your business credit from your personal credit. If for nothing else, if you do get audited by the IRS, they're not digging around in your personal finances as well. That they just be limited to your business finances. Question, Barbara, I received my EIN number. That's basically your Social Security number for your business issued by the IRS. Call it the EIN number. As a sole proprietor almost 10 years ago, and that's how I registered with the state. How I flipped to an LLC from that, just pay $300. Now, what you'll do is you'll fill out that Articles of Incorporation for the LLC. You include the EIN number as well from the IRS. And don't worry, folks, I'm going to walk you through these steps here in a moment. And then you're going to pay that $300 a year. So then you'll be considered an LLC. You'll have that liability protection that you didn't have as a sole proprietor. All right, lots of good questions. So let me move on here. And so this is the steps that you want to take here. And for everybody participating in the competition, you need to be in good standing with the state as an LLC, or if you are a sole proprietor or a nonprofit, then that's fine. But otherwise, you need to be in good standing with the state and set up as an LLC with the state of Maryland. So here's how you do that. Now, if you are set up in another state, like Delaware, for example, well, we need to see that you are also in good standing with Maryland, which Maryland requires if you're doing business in Maryland. So first thing you want to do is search. Let's say we're just setting up our business for the first time. We're not an LLC yet, and we're just starting from scratch. So first thing you want to do is you want to look for the business name that you're looking to set up in egov.maryland to make sure that that business name is not already taken. The other thing you want to do is make sure that the URL that you're looking to set up is not taken either. Oftentimes your URL should be similar to the name of your business. That way, when people are searching on the name of your business, it'll come up higher because it's also in the URL for your website address for your business. All right, so start with egov.maryland. Look at the Business Express to make sure that that name isn't already taken by another company here in Maryland. Then look to make sure that URL that you're looking for isn't taken either. A good place to check is register.com. I always recommend register.com and not GoDaddy. What happens when you do you search on GoDaddy is you'll see that they're advertising it for $19 for that URL. And then you save that search and then you go back to it and then you see that it's now $57. Like, what happened? It was $19 last time. What they do, and nobody likes this. What they'll do is they'll say, oh, you searched on this, you're interested in it. They then park it and then jack up the rate so that if you now want it and you didn't buy it initially, it's now costs more to go back and register it. Register.com doesn't do that to you. So I always recommend register.com when searching for a URL. So let's say we got a name for our business. Nobody else is using it. We got a URL that we like. Nobody else is using it. Next thing you want to do is go to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, uspto.gov, and look to make sure that that name for the business isn't taken by somebody else already. And that's a national search. This becomes more important, especially if you're doing business online, because somebody in Seattle who's doing business online and somebody in Baltimore is doing business online, doesn't really matter, right? They're going to now look to see that you are that you're competing with that business in Seattle. So you want to make sure that the name you're using isn't taken by somebody else, because now you're not just doing business in Maryland, you're doing business worldwide. So it's better to always have a name that's not being used by anyone else and it's not already trademark or or has a trademark tied to it. So we got name we like, not being used by anybody else. We got a URL that we like. Now we need to go to egov.maryland, file the articles of organization as an LLC. You create an operating agreement, and that's really simple. Here's the owner of the business. If there's any partners involved, any other owners, you include them as well. Address, name of the company, and that's it. Submit that to the state. Then you get an EIN number from the IRS. So once that's approved by the state, then you get the EIN number from the IRS, and that's just as I explained before, it's like a social security number for your business. Then once you have that, you register your LLC for Maryland for state taxes. Once you have all that done, you go to the bank, say, I got an EIN number, I got my LLC set up with the state, and then you can set up a business bank account. And it's important to have your business account separate from your personal, so you can start establishing business credit. You can start now determining how much money am I earning from my business as opposed to my personal, and you keep everything separate. I know it's tough to do. I've been there, I've done that, but it's much easier to manage everything when you're able to keep things separate. And if you're working with an accountant, your accountant will love you if you're able to keep those separate. All right, so let me pause there and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, there's questions in the chat, Dennis.
Yep. All right, so let's see. So I know that the governor was talking about waiving that $300 fee, and it's the $300 is an annual fee. You have to pay that for the first time and keep on paying it every year to stay in good standing. As far as the $300, whether they waive that or not, I think it was for like a certain dollar amount. I know that I was looking at it and I didn't qualify for it. So like, all right, so I guess we're not doing the waiving of the $300 fee. So if you're just starting your business, let's just say it's an idea, do you still need to register with the state of Maryland? If this is just an idea, you're not doing business, then no, you don't need to be registered with the state in order to participate in the competition. However, if you are doing business, you're collecting money, you're making sales, you need to be in good standing with the state.
Dennis, Samantha said at the top, I don't know if you see it, but I just filed for my LLC and didn't pay 300. It was a little over 100. Did I do something wrong?
You want to just double check to make sure that you are in good standing with the state. And you could do that by going to egov.maryland and see if it is in good standing. So register my name, business, and then decide to change my name. That's fine. For the sake of the contest and deadline, should I file for a name change or I just register a new business? You can simply just make that change, submit it with the state, and you're done. I mean, it doesn't need to be complicated at all. Are URLs from register.com and GoDaddy recognized once purchased? Yeah, it's same thing. You're just registering with a different company. It just said, if you prefer to register with GoDaddy, that's fine. Just be prepared that if you go back to try to purchase it, you'll end up paying more. Shaniko, question?
Yes, and I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of cooking, so I can't type. The question I had is when I got my articles of incorporation and I got the paperwork sent to me, I did check to make sure it was listed as the business being in good standing. But there was also a form that came with it that said to pay another $89 to remain in good standing or something like that. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that or if it was just a way for, to pay more money.
Did you get that from the state or did you get that from another company?
From the state.
Yeah, or maybe they're doing some type of early registration fee. I don't know. I haven't seen that.
Oh, no problem. I can, if you don't mind, I'll scan it and send it off after just to get someone else's perspective on it.
Well, I would just call the state and find out exactly what it is.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. So the Vicky was mentioning here, where do you go to check if you're in good standing? Yeah, the SDAT, Business Entity Search, and you can start with egov.maryland and start there. It'll take you to the SDAT Business Entity Search. Would you review the operating agreement? We can't review operating agreements, but it's not difficult. Just answer the questions on there. It's a pretty straightforward form, and go ahead and submit it. Yeah, so if you're a Delaware LLC, you just need proof that you're in good standing for the competition. Yes, but if you're doing business in Maryland, you have to be in good standing with Maryland, and there's documents that you have to send showing that you're in good standing with Delaware in order to do business in Maryland. You can check the eGov site for that as well. All right. All right, so I hope that helps with setting up your business. This is the way to do it. Bottom line, LLC, easiest way to go, fastest, cheapest, and you are protected. Separate your personal from your business credit, your finances, and the process of doing that, you need to have the EIN number from the IRS when you walk into the bank to set that business bank account, to set up that business bank account. That'll be required. All right. So moving on here. So when we get a lot of questions about intellectual property protection, and there's basically three types: trademark, patents, and copyright. I'm going to go through the difference with each, and help you determine if you need to start thinking about intellectual property protection for your business. So a trademark is any type of distinctive mark. Think of like a logo or a phrase. Anything that you are tying to your business that you're using to help differentiate you, part of your branding. It's where you want somebody to see that and think of your business, right? If it's that important to you, it may be worth getting a trademark on that. And at first, what you'll do is you'll file with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and they'll do all types of research to make sure that it's not being used by anyone else before you can actually call it a trademark and have it protected. It takes a while. It takes about 3 years for that to happen. It can cost tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees in order to make sure that your property is protected, that mark is protected. It would differentiate you from competitors, so nobody else can use it. But think of, it's like a logo, a name, a business name, a tagline. But here's the thing. In this country, we protect intellectual property. We want people to own that intellectual secret sauce that they're creating. And so automatically, when something is created, like this slide, for example, this is my own work, it's protected. I don't have to file anything to have it copyrighted. All I have to do is show that I created this. I created it on a certain date, and therefore, and it is protected automatically. I don't have to do anything. Now, I could file this with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and this would fall under a copyright, not trademark, and just to ensure some protection. My grandmother was a songwriter, and what she would do is she would put a song that she had written with all the lyrics and the music, the score, and she would write it out, and then she would put it in an envelope and then mail it to herself. And the post office would then put a stamp on it as to when that was filed with the post office, and to show that she had created that song on that particular date, and that it was the U.S. government who was stamping that, basically putting a timestamp on it by the U.S. government. So that's how she protected all of her songs that she wrote, and she didn't have to file anything, but because it's automatically copyrighted as soon as you create something. All you have to show is that you did it on a certain date. So it doesn't get into an argument of, oh, well, you created that just yesterday. Wasn't 5 years ago. Well, I got a timestamp showing it was created actually 5 years ago. So if you have a URL that you're using and it's your company's name and you're using it in commerce, most of the time that's going to be protected by a judge, because they're going to err on the side of the business that's already doing business. So if you have a name that you're using, you've been using it for 5 years, and then somebody comes along and then gets a trademark yesterday, chances are you're going to be better protected because you've already been doing business under that name, and you're going to have a better shot in a legal case. So if you do want to trademark something, you need to register with the USPTO, U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. And first you need to do a search to see if that mark is not already being used. And then you have to submit your intent to put it into commerce. And you have 6 months in order to start using that right away. And then once you get that trademark, then you get the R symbol that you can then use in a logo or tagline, whichever that you're using there. So USPTO.gov is where you would go. And again, it's always good practice when you're thinking about a name to start doing that research and make sure that it's not already being used or something similar isn't already being used. So here are some examples of different types of trademarks. There's 5 different trademarks that are considered: fanciful, arbitrary, suggestive, descriptive, and generic. So in the fanciful category, these are just completely made up words, like Polaroid. Doesn't mean anything. It was a made up word. That word did not exist prior to that. That's usually a really good one to try to use, is a name that, or a word that doesn't exist, because you can rest assured nobody else is using that. The challenge is if it's a word nobody's ever existed before, now you have to do a ton of marketing and advertising to show what that word means, before people can make that connection with your brand and the trademark. So Exxon never existed before. Kodak, these are all made up words. Now, arbitrary trademarks, so these are words that do have a meaning in one context, but they're being used in a completely unrelated context, like Apple, all right? So we all know what an Apple is, but then it's used by a computer company, or Dove, now being used by a soap company. So they have a meaning in one context that's being used completely different in the business context. More of a suggestive trademark. So these get a little more challenging because you may see some more competition for that type of mark because it may be used for something similar, like Microsoft. We see a lot of software products with the word soft in it. Or Jaguar. All right. So now you're getting a little more of a suggestive name, and that's going to be a little more challenging. Descriptive trademarks. So these are a description of that product or service. Best Buy, British Airways. Again, this is going to now be a little more challenging to try to get that name because chances are there may be other companies, similar companies, that are using that already. Now, generic trademarks, this is crazy. These are actually trademarks that are no longer protected because they were used so much that it's become a generic name for the product, like Band-Aid. What else do we call that? What else do we call that thing that we put on ourselves when we have a cut? Band-Aid became so commonly used that nobody else could, there's no other name that we have for that. Or Xerox, same thing. Xerox, you're going to Xerox that. It became a verb. It became so generic that it wasn't protected anymore. So it's crazy to think that these companies spend billions of dollars trying to protect their name that nobody else can use, that it then becomes generic, so generic that it's not protected anymore. So we want to talk next about copyright. And again, this is just any original work that you create. What you see on the screen here, except for that copyright symbol, this is copyrighted. Just by, is it a original work? Nobody else has created this before. Yeah, they may have had other discussions about copyright, but nobody else has put these words together like I have here. This is my work. Can't be copied. And so it's automatically copyrighted. Artwork, photographs. Just because something is on the internet doesn't mean it's not copyrighted. It is. And for those who are not familiar, Getty Images, they're actually going out and they've created a search tool that finds all their images that are being used on people's websites. And so you got to be careful. I hope everybody hears me on this because this will save you a lot of headache. If you are using images and you're just pulling them off the web, putting them onto your website, be very, very careful, because Getty Images has created a software where they'll search out all the images. And if you're using one of theirs on your website or in your marketing, they automatically send a letter from their attorney's office that says you are in violation of the copyright and you can pay us an X amount of money. Usually it starts at $10,000, or you can go to court and pay even more. Now, I've known several people who have gotten these letters and they paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for all the images that they were using that were actually copyrighted by Getty Images. So just because something's on the web does not mean that it's fair use and that you can then start using it. That's not true. Anything that's created by somebody else is automatically protected. A blog post, a marketing brochure that you create, that's automatically protected. So this happens as soon as the work is created. You really don't need to do anything other than be able to show that it was created at a certain date, time. So if there's some dispute, you'll be able to back that up. And that's why my grandmother would send herself a letter with her songs in it, because it was the post office, the federal government, that was time stamping it for her. Now, if you choose, if you do choose to copyright something, you certainly can. And again, what it does, it gives you that timestamp, and it just gives you that authenticity that it has been confirmed to be copyrighted, and it costs $35 to $65 to do that. And then we did this for publishing companies that I ran. We did this for a lot of the content we created because we were having problems with people violating copyright law. So we would file it, and that actually deterred a lot of the potential violations. Another form is patents. You often hear about this. This covers inventions. So anything that's being created that's unique, different. It can also be like a process. So let's say McDonald's has a process for making its hamburgers. They can actually patent that process, or it could be a design. So it includes anything with like machines or anything that you're manufacturing, chemical mixtures like paint, and any process that, and this is a key, not previously available to the public. So it has to be unique. Now, here's the thing. You only have a 20-year protection. So what happens is you have to then show that process or that design, write it out. It then has to be approved to make sure that nobody else is using that, and in order for you to get that patent. Then it's only good for 20 years. Then after 20 years, that patent comes off, and now those designs, that process that you fought so hard to protect, is available to everyone. So this gets to be an interesting dilemma. And so for like Under Armour, for example, Under Armour did not patent its moisture wicking shirts and clothing because it would only be protected for 20 years. And they didn't want to be in the business of hiring a bunch of attorneys to protect their patent. Instead, they said, what we're going to be about is we're going to be all about innovative, creative thinking. And while Adidas and Nike are trying to figure out how to create their own moisture wicking apparel, we're going to move on to something else. And we're going to be all about creating the next best thing and not worry about fighting to protect what we've already created. So it becomes a mindset too. You know, do you want to be in the business here of protecting? Because if somebody violates your copyright, your trademark, or your patent, you have to fight it. And if you don't, then the courts are going to say, well, you really don't seem to care too much about protecting it because you never challenged this before. And now all of a sudden you are, they're going to say, now. Either you're protecting it and you're going to fight to protect it, or you're not. So you can't pick and choose as to who you're going to go after to protect your intellectual property. You got to fight it. And if you're not fighting it, then the courts are going to look at it and say, you must not really care about it. So therefore, we're not going to care about it either. So,
Hey, Dennis?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we were talking about the Wright brothers last week. I think it was last week.
Right.
The Wright brothers and Samuel Langley. One of the things we teach in the aviation history course is that the Wright brothers became so obsessed after they flew their first airplane with patent protection. They spent so much of their energy and time in court suing other people that they were leapfrogging their technology by other folks.
Yep.
And one of the reasons that the Wright company was actually bought out by one of their competitors is because they didn't innovate. So it almost sounds like Under Armour has learned that lesson, maybe not specifically from them, but that basic idea.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Pete. And Kevin Plank actually talks about that situation with the Wright brothers. I encourage everyone to go onto Wikipedia and check out the story here, because Pete's absolutely right. It's why we don't have Wright Brother Airlines today, because they were so obsessed with protecting their patents that they weren't continuing to innovate. They were just trying to protect what they already did. Meanwhile, everybody else was moving on and saying, how can we do this better? And just left them behind.
Yeah, it's actually embedded in the language of aviation. There's a lot of French words that echo, which words was the French innovated while they were not.
Yep, I agree. All right, so keep in mind that when filing for a patent, it will protect those who are first to file, not first to invent. So if you are in that business of inventing something, it's a good idea to go ahead and file that, even if you don't have something created just yet. So especially if you're in a race. But keep in mind that if you file and receive that patent, it will be publicly disclosed, the fact that you have filed a patent, and 20 years from now, it's going to be available to everyone. Your IP, your intellectual property, can be your competitive advantage. Keeping in mind that it's automatically protected with anything that you're creating. And so it really comes down to this question of what business do you want to be in? Do you want to be in this position of just trying to protect what you have, or more about innovating, looking at what's ahead while everyone else is trying to copy what you've already done? If you want more information on that, we actually have attorneys that we work with who specialize in various forms of intellectual property, which we can recommend to you. And they're terrific. We have workshops. You can go to our YouTube channel. We do have a YouTube channel with CCBC, Center for Business Innovation. Encourage you to check that out, where we've actually had some presentations on this particular topic if you want more details. So I will pause there and see if there's any questions. So what Pete was saying at the end was about the whole idea of Wright brothers trying to protect their intellectual property. Meanwhile, competitors were racing ahead, and eventually Wright brothers had to sell to their competitors because they couldn't keep up. Provisional patent is the cheapest way to go. $75 a year for micro entities. Donald, do you mind just putting in a link as to where people can get more information about that? That's good information for folks to have. If someone creates a logo for me and is paid, I copyright it, then it belongs to me. Just clarifying, I don't want to pay in the long for my, gotcha. So if you have a logo, it's automatically protected. It's a copyright, nobody else can use that. So it does belong to you. Now, here's the key. When you're working with a designer and you paid for that, you need to double check and make sure in your agreement that anything created by that designer, you own. A lot of times what will happen is, especially with these low price services out there, they will retain ownership of what they create. So be sure when you are entering in agreements with designers, graphic designers, website designers, that you are retaining the ownership of anything created. You may pay a little bit extra for that, but you absolutely want to do that because that is your business. All right? I can't stress that enough. The designer shouldn't own that. You should. How expensive is it to track, monitor online snippets or copies of your content for infringement? I honestly don't know. I don't know what's out there. I'm sure there is stuff out there to track that. I don't know if it's worth it, to be honest with you. Because then you have to enforce it. That's the key. So make sure that you're enforcing it if you're that worried about protecting it. And then the courts will stand behind you. But if you're not protecting it, then chances are you're gonna lose it. Let's see. Is this necessary? Can you just start using the mark as proof that it belongs to you? Yeah. You can just, anything you create is yours. You own it. And especially if you're using it in commerce, you're getting sales from it, of course, you're going to protect it. May want to get a patent lawyer. Patent lawyers are going to start out at minimum, probably $3,500, probably $5,000. If you're going through it yourself, that's fine. You can do it yourself and not hire an attorney. That's certainly fine too. So if you have a blog post or something, how would I get copyrighted? I see a $35 to $65 fee. Honestly, if you're doing a blog post, you don't want to spend $35, $65 every time you do that. Don't worry about it. You got better things to do than worry about somebody copying that. If somebody is, I would call them up and say, hey, I would appreciate if you link back to my website so that you're getting more traffic back to you and they can actually help you get your message out to more people. Stacy, question?
Yeah, no, I was just the patent attorneys that I was referring to do a simple search. If you don't understand how to do a search on the USPTO, it could be a little daunting when you first go on there. And they can just help you search to see if your trademark has someone else on it or your name is similar, and they only charge a couple hundred. I've talked to about a half dozen of them, and they only charge a couple hundred to help you do the search. If you need to be represented, that's when the cost comes in, and they're about $1,000 to $1,500 is the quotes I've been getting. So you just have to search around, but they are out there, and some of them are quite affordable.
Yeah. To do a simple search, it's going to be a couple $100 for an attorney to do that. When they start getting into more work for you, start following stuff, you're going to be talking several $1,000s to start, and then depending on how much work is going to be involved, it could be much more. So this comes down to, how do you want to spend your money? How do you want to spend your time? And so I would encourage you to check it out. When you're doing your search on the USPTO for a name, you'll see some saying dead. They may still be living, but the business is not, that name isn't being used anymore. So you don't need to worry about it. And you'll also see some different iterations of those names as well. So it's good practice to see if that is already being used when you're searching on your name that you want to use. Other questions? All right. So what I'd like to do next is talk about an oldie but a goodie. We're going to talk about the financial aspect. And I pull this up for you. So this far and away is the weakest part of the business and of the business plans that we see in every competition. And it's important that you got this big idea that you're all excited about. We talked about the strategic plan, the marketing planning. Now we talked about how to set up your business. Now we need to talk about the numbers. All right. This is where it could be a little sobering. You find out, okay, I don't have quite as much revenue as I thought I would have. It's actually going to cost me a lot more than I anticipated. And I'm actually not going to make nearly as much money as I thought. So it can be a little sobering as well. But the financial plan is a compass for you. It gives you direction. And what you can do is break that down and say, okay, now what do I need to do to improve on that? You know, it's your grading system. It's your metrics that you're using. At the end of the day, it's what matters most, because if you want to stay in business, even if you're a nonprofit, you're going to need to make money and you're going to need to manage those finances effectively so that you can continue to stay in business. So if you are planning to get in front of the sharks on Shark Tank, or if you're planning to get yourself in front of some lenders or in front of your rich uncle, well, you need to have these finances in order to be able to present to an investor, a lender, you know, a family member if you're looking for money, but also to help you stay on track. So you know how you're doing, what you need to improve, where the money is going. And you know, you'll look at the end of the year and say, I don't understand. I'm showing I made all this money. Where did it all go? What did I spend it on? I know I'm not taking trips to the Bahamas every month, so this is crazy. I thought I'd be making more money, and I don't seem to be making nearly as much. I'll talk a little bit about why that might happen, but if you have a good understanding of your finances, then it'll be easier for you to manage all this and be able to pitch your ideas to investors or lenders. The thing is, when you are working with your numbers here, working on projections, many of you are going to be pitching your idea here, and it's going to be based on some scenarios, what you're hoping to accomplish in the next year, 3 years. What you want to do is be realistic. All right. What I often do is we'll recommend that you create 3 different scenarios. And the first one is usually a pretty rosy scenario. You know, everything's going great. Everything's going to work out just perfectly. And then you may want to back that off to create another scenario, kind of like a worst case. What if my marketing doesn't go as I thought? What if my expenses are about twice what I anticipated? What if I don't sell nearly as much as I thought? What would that look like? And then oftentimes there's a third scenario, which is kind of a middle ground between that rosy scenario that you first envisioned, that worst case scenario, and then something in between there. It just forces you to look at the what ifs. You know, what if we start, supply chain costs continue to go up like they are? What if contractors are going to demand more money than I ever anticipated? And then the figures you don't know, you want to look around, you want to do some research. Google is your best friend here. There's a lot of examples out there for different types of businesses with business plans that you can look at, finances. Publicly traded companies have to disclose their financials. And so you can see with those types of companies, maybe they're in an industry that's similar to yours, you can see where they're spending their money. How much is cost of goods as a percent of sales? What is their marketing budget that is realistic in my particular industry? All that is publicly available. You can get all those numbers. And then you can actually buy some business plans with some finances, financial breakdowns that you can take a look at and see if they apply to yours as well. And then always think of your financial statement, your profit and loss statement, as an evolving statement where you constantly want to go back and rework the numbers, see what's working, what's not, and constantly revise it. So what I want to do here, we sent you some worksheets for you to work with, and I think these will be helpful. The first one here is a pro forma statement, and we kept it simple, one page, and you'll see that in year 0, before you even start doing any business, there's going to be some startup expenses. You may have equipment costs, there may be some setup fees, marketing. How are people going to know you? And don't tell me word of mouth. All right. Word of mouth is nice, but you need to give people something to talk about. The only way that's going to happen is if you're doing marketing and advertising so that they can talk about you and tell other people about you. You need to get your product or service out there so that people are talking about it. Word of mouth is not going to happen on its own. You need to spur that on, and the only way you're going to do that is through some marketing advertising. So you can use social media. Unless you have thousands of followers on social media, you're going to have to start spending money on Facebook ads, Google ads, Instagram, TikTok. You're going to have to start boosting that in order to get other people talking about you. You may have supplies. You may have to equipment costs, computer, or if you're going to rent some space. Before you even start, you're going to have some cost here. So you're putting that in year 0 here. Then you'll see you have your sales from the products and service. I often find it's easier to break it down on a monthly basis. So it may be easier to think about it in that context than over the course of a year. Granted, for a lot of businesses, maybe ups and downs, some cycles throughout the year. So you may want to just take an average for the month on a monthly basis before projecting out for an entire year. Sometimes it's easier to work that way and envision what you would do in a month compared to an entire year. If you have other sales coming in, you would include that there. So you have your total sales in B3. Then you have your cost of goods. So this is what it's costing you to put that product or service in the market. If you're reselling a product, for example, then you have the cost of the inventory that you're taking on before you resell it. And this is just an example. Again, this is going to be different for different industries. So you can certainly adjust this to what makes sense for your industry. If you have any direct material costs, building supplies, let's say that you are a furniture builder. All right, so this would be your cost of your lumber, all the hinges, all the pieces that you're using to build the furniture will go in here. So that's your cost of goods, keeping it simple. And then now you can determine your gross profit. You can determine your gross profit as a percent of your revenue. That's always good to look at. Is it 50%? Is it 10%? Then you have your variable expenses. So these are expenses that will change with how much sales you're doing. So if you're paying commissions, If you're paying other people to sell your product, your service, and you have to pay them a commission, that would go here. If you have additional freight, if you have shipping costs, that's only going to go up with every sale that you're making. So as you are making more sales, those costs are going to increase. As you're making less sales, those costs would decrease. That's a variable cost. And this is where a lot of people don't take into account those costs, and they wonder why they're not making any money, because they looked at just their hard costs, their fixed costs, and not the variable costs that change as they're generating more sales. So you add up your total variable expenses. Now we got our fixed expenses. These do not change with how much we're producing. So it could be your rent, your utilities, your marketing and advertising. If you're spending $10,000 on social media ads, it doesn't matter if you're selling $20,000 worth of stuff or $50,000, it's still $10,000 that you spent. So that's a fixed cost. Salaries, wages. You want to make sure you're paying yourself. You're not a volunteer in your own business. So, and this is one that a lot of people leave out, and the judges will ask, how are you making money? Are you working full time and doing this on the side? How is that possible? Or are you doing this business full time? We see that you're not paying yourself. How is that going to work? So make sure that you're paying yourself or you're paying other people. If you're not paying yourself, be prepared to tell the judges, I plan to not pay myself for the first year. And they'll ask, well, how then are you putting food on the table? Are you paying the mortgage? Well, I have another job. I have a full-time job and this will be on the side. Okay, that makes sense. But be prepared to be able to discuss that, because it's usually a red flag. And so make sure you're considering any type of salary to yourself or any wages to other people. So we have a lot of lines for expenses, not as many lines for sales, unfortunately. But once you have those expenses figured out, then you can determine your expenses as a % of sales. This is a good metric to come back to see, okay, how are we doing? We keep it under control. Then you have your net profit. And again, this is before taxes. We haven't paid any taxes yet. And government's going to want their share. So between the federal and state, usually amounts to about 30%, just to be safe. And at the end of the day, after all that, then you have your retained earnings. So this is just as a guide for you. It may work for some businesses, it may not work for others, but you'll want to go through something similar. You may have some other expenses that we're not discussing here, or some others that may be more relevant. Go ahead and create your own using and plug those in that make more sense for your particular business or industry. And you want to map out what will this look like over the next several years, so that you have an idea of where this business is going and how much money it can earn. That's one worksheet that we gave you. We gave you another one as well. It's a little more in-depth that may be more applicable for some others. And that was an Excel spreadsheet, and pulling that up here for you. So you can see you have different types of sales, and you can plug in industry benchmarks here. And then so you would create your percentages here in this column, and then you have something to compare to as well. But we're looking at sales first, and you can break it down on a monthly basis. And maybe there's going to be some cycles. If you're in the landscaping business, we know that January, February are going to be pretty much dead. Not going to be doing a whole lot. May try to supplement with some snow plowing or some other things, but we're not going to do nearly as much as we will in April through September. So you have your sales here, maybe different types of products that you're selling. You can include here your cost of sales, and then your gross profit would be included here. Here are all the different types of expenses: salary, payroll, maybe you have some contractors that you're working with, suppliers, advertising, accounting, insurance. All these would go under expenses to determine your net profit. All right, so this may be another tool that you can use. I see Stacy already getting overwhelmed here.
Hey, Dennis, can I just add that this should be used as a tool, like you said, but it should really look like the pro forma, correct? With the competition.
Yeah, so keep in mind, with this business plan that you're submitting, it's 5 to 7 pages, right? So we don't want a whole bunch of spreadsheets and say, you figure it out. All right. So instead, what we want to see is that you have gone through this and that you have a good story to tell with your finances that makes sense. So whatever you feel is going to be best, 1-page document showing your projections, showing the key costs. And here's the key. If you're selling something, product, for example, the judges may ask you, what is your per unit cost? Let's say we are making juice. All right, we're an organic juice company. They'll ask you, what does it cost to make this bottle of juice that you gave us? And if you're not able to answer that, that's going to be a problem. So you want to say, each one of our bottles that we create costs us $4.92. That includes the labeling, the bottle itself, the cap, and then they'll ask, well, what is your profit margin then for each one? And you need to be able to give that figure. So the more that you know about your numbers, the better shape that you're going to be in for the business plan competition. And you want to include that in your write-up too. But you're not going to know that until you start going through these numbers. Start really dissecting them and understanding your costs as well as your revenue, and at the end of the day, your profit margin. So if you're doing a service, for instance, trucking, would it be per mile? Yeah. So again, it's going to be different for different businesses, different services. Yeah. So if a question from a judge may be, well, what is your cost per mile? What is it costing you for every mile that you have a driver out there? What is that costing you? And what is it costing you to have a truck sit idle? What does that cost to you? For a consulting service, potential question be estimated cost per acquisition customer. Yeah. How much is it costing you to get each client? And what's your profit margin on each client? We pay trainers for every firearms class they teach. Is that a salary or a variable expense? Seems like the latter. So that would be a variable cost, because if you're only hiring those people for each class that you teach, that would be variable. Now your cost as the administrator of all this is not going to change, so that would be a fixed cost. Where can you find the public information? So go to the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. Every public company has to file all their financials with the SEC, and you can look for their 10K forms that has all that financial information. Other questions about the financials? There's a lot of different formats to choose from. So feel free to find one that works best for you, but I would suggest that you keep it to one page because you're going to have, you're limited to 5 to 7 pages here. So, and then you can bring in some other financial information that's relevant in your narrative, in your business plan. In the pro forma part, are we putting in the exact details of our business for listed there, like direct materials? It's, again, the more specific that you can be. So how are you defining direct materials? Maybe different for your business, because what you want to show here to the judges is, I know what I'm talking about. I've done my homework. I've done my research. And you want them to have confidence in you that you've done your homework and that you have looked at everything so that they're comfortable in giving you money. At the end of the day, that's what this is all about. They're looking at this to say, we have $20,000 to give to you. We'd love to give it to you. Give us a good reason why we should give it to you and not to somebody else. And the more credible you are in your financial plan, in your pitch, better position you're going to be. Shanique?
Dennis, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
can I just, that was my question, Janelle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I totally understand what you're saying about more, the more information, more credible. I just want to make sure that my understanding is correct, that when these things are listed over here, like sales from products or service, like we're putting in that verbiage and then putting the numbers that correlate with that to the right in the columns, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. Shaniqua, question?
Yeah, so for those who are in like the startup stage or a new stage of developing their business,
Yep.
and you don't have access to a lot of this information, would you suggest maybe doing some research on businesses that have a similar business model and using that as projections?
Yeah, absolutely. But you want to be able to show, here's how I'm going to do my business. You don't want to just take somebody else's, right, numbers and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do too, because you're going to approach it differently. Right. Okay.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
If we have a company already but want to build it in a way, should we do the business plan on the current or the future change? Already, if you're thinking about changing your business plan, you're probably not happy with your current one. So I would go with the one that you feel better about, more optimistic, the one that you're saying, okay, here's what I want to go forward with. Angel, go ahead.
No, I was saying, like, if I have a trucking company, but I want to grow it in a way, bring in a new revenue within it, but still remain that same company. Like, should I be doing a business plan on what I'm already doing or where I'm trying to go with the business?
I would do it on where you're trying to go with the business. So
Okay.
If you have the trucking business and you have an idea for whether you can create additional revenue, I would go with that. Again, what you're trying to do here is you're excited about something. You want to get the judges excited about it too, and give them a reason why. If you're saying I got a trucking business, but I'm going to do something that's going to really generate some additional revenue here and be unlike any other trucking company, go for that. Get the judges excited about your idea here.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. So with that, what I'd like to do is go through the business plan template that we've given you, tie everything together here for you. Bear with me 1 second, pull up the business plan. So this is the template that everybody should have received. We sent it out a couple times. So before saying, I didn't get it, all right, please check your email. It would come from Angela Kivas, and If you still didn't get it, be glad to send it to you. But follow the directions here. Put in your business name, address, all this information here for you. Then you're going to have an executive summary, which is really just about 1 page that summarizes all the elements in your business plan. So consider this your outline right here, the company background, market opportunity, competitive strategy. Those are all the different elements that you're going to talk about in your business plan. But what the judges will want to see is just a 1-page summary talking about the company background, a paragraph on the market opportunity, a paragraph on the competitive strategy. Here's the key. You're excited about this. You need to get the judges excited about it too. What is different about this? What is unique? Why should they say, this sounds like a great idea, we should give this person $20,000? All right. So this should be compelling. It should make somebody want to read on. Not to give them everything, but to be able to say, this sounds like a pretty cool idea. I want to read on. I want to see how they're going to be able to do this. All right. So this is where you want to get some excitement, make it compelling, make it interesting, touch on the financials here. Here's how much we plan to do. Here's how much it's costing us. And here's how much money we plan to invest in it to get it going. Now, these questions here are simply here to help guide you. Do not include the questions. All right, this is not a question and answer form. All right, delete the questions, but address them. And some of them are going to be more relevant than others. Some may not be relevant to you at all. All right, so these are just some things to consider as you're writing your business plan. And so go back to our first workshop where we talked about the vision, your goals, your objectives. What is it that you want to accomplish? Then in workshop 2, we talked about the marketing, the market opportunity. Are there clear segments in the market? Getting back to the who. What are their needs? We talked about the problems, the challenges, the solutions that you can offer. Here's a one that you really need to consider. Have you talked to potential customers? I'm always amazed at how many people are planning to start a business and they really haven't talked to anybody about it. The thing that you want to do, especially if you have an idea for a business, is you want to establish some type of proof of concept. And this could be done as part of like a survey that you've done, or you've had focus groups, you've talked to 30 people, here's what they've had to say, and bring that into the narrative for your business plan. Granted, folks who are already in business have an advantage over those who are just have an idea. So if it's just an idea you can still compete, but you need to be able to show that you have proof that this is going to work, that this isn't just some idea that you thought of in the middle of the night and jotted down on paper. What proof do we have that this could possibly work? And why would we want to invest any money in this? I say invest, we're giving you the money. Why would we want to give you that money in order to grow it if it hasn't been proven? And I just give you a quick example. One of the previous years, we had a guy who was starting a mobile car detailing business. And he was working for a dealership doing that work. And his plan was he's going to leave the dealership, go off on his own. He won the competition because he had proof that he had 25 customers that he had established at the dealership who were going to leave that dealership to then be customers of his. And with his background, his experience, the fact that he's really hustling, the judges felt pretty good about giving him the money because he was able to prove that he had a customer base all ready to go as soon as he was ready to leave that business. So some questions to consider there. Your competitive strategy, what's going to make you different than everybody else? What are your strengths, your weaknesses? Who are your competitors? How are you going to be bigger, better, less expensive? We always get the question, does the cover page count as the 5 to 7 pages? If you go to 8 pages, we're not going to remove you from the competition. All right. So we really
Let me add, Dennis, we don't count the cover page as a page.
Okay. All right. So,
but yeah, try
right.
to keep it 5 to 7, but we do not count the cover page as page
Right.
1. It starts with your first executive summary.
Right. Now, if you're giving us a 15, 20-page business plan, no. All right. We're not making exceptions there. Your go-to marketing strategy. How are you going to get this out there? How are you going to let people know about this? Again, word of mouth is not a marketing strategy. All right. It's wishing and hoping and praying. How are you going to get this in front of people? What is the strategy? Have you talked to people about pricing? Do you understand that market? Prove that you understand this market and how to get in front of people to get them to buy from you. Who is your management team? Who are you working with here? If it's freelancers, contractors, because one of the questions that judges are going to have is, how are you going to get all this done? So you're not going to be able to do it all. So what are some things that you're going to focus on, and what are some things that others can help you with? And then here's the key: traction. And I say here, if you haven't made any sales, don't worry. What we need to see is that this is a concept that is proven. What have you already done? Have you done some surveys? Have you talked to potential customers? Do you have any customers saying a letter of commitment, saying that they're going to come be a customer of yours as soon as you're ready to go? Do you have a website? And then financials. This is just a quick summary that you may want to include in your executive summary at the beginning, just showing revenue, expenditures, net. But again, we give you the pro forma that you can adjust here in this Word document to use on your own and include as part of your 5 to 7 page plan. All right, some questions to consider here. How are you going to fund the business? How are you going to get started? Do you have savings? Are you going to use credit cards? Do you have a rich uncle? Do you have investors already? How are you going to work out debt, equity? Who's going to provide this capital funding? If you're planning to bootstrap it, you're doing this on your own, how is that going to work? And then here's a checklist that you can use before you submit it, and make sure that you covered the main points of the business plan. And then we've also sent you the criteria that the judges are going to use in the competition. So you have that as well, and you can use that as a checklist too. You'll see that the categories are the same categories I just went through in the business plan template, and some of the key questions are the same ones that the judges are being asked to consider too when evaluating each of them. Cool. If we have proof of contact with customers, do we include that in the business plan? Yes, anything that helps establish some credibility here with the judges is better. Give you an example with the mobile car detailing business. Let's say you're starting out your own. You have 25 customers ready to go, and you come in with a stack of cards. I have a stack of cards here, letters of commitment from 25 people who are ready to do business with me, paying $100 a month for the service. All right, that's pretty powerful. Keep in mind for for this. You want to keep it to that 5 to 7 pages. That cover letter, cover page does not count as part of the 5 to 7 pages, but use this as a checklist as you're going through your business plan to make sure you have everything covered. Shaniqua?
So kind of going off what you were just explaining about having that packet of like letters of support, would something like reviews on Google review, business reviews, or like different reviews that have been done, I know we can't add them like a whole website into the
Why not?
Okay, so then that's my question. Like, so would it be appropriate, like, for example, on my website, I have a feed, a review page, and I literally have it linked. So when people leave reviews, it automatically flows to my website. So could I like make a copy and paste of that to show the different reviews, or do you need more detail?
No, but again, you're limited to 5 to 7 pages here. So
right,
what you want to do is probably pull out a couple, and you can include that with the proof of concept. That's you're proving that people like your product. The testimonials are nice, but what they're really going to care about is, well, how much money you're making here. Let's say you have a 4.8 Google review, but you're only making $100 a month. Okay, great. At the end of the day, are you making money here? Let's not lose sight of what matters most. Is this a business that's growing? Is it sustainable? Yeah, we could have a few reviews that are really nice. That'll help. That will certainly help. But
I guess my question then would be, how would you suggest linking like the positivity or the proof that this concept works with showing that people are actually paying for it?
You don't link to a website. Don't send the judges someplace where they have to try to find this. Instead,
I'm sorry, maybe link is the wrong word. I don't mean like link, like physically that, like sending them somewhere. I mean, how would you suggest tying it together to show the concept and the revenue? So if I say, okay, well, 15 clients left 15 reviews and they're all scheduled for the next month out, what is a good way to link that to show proof?
Just include a couple as highlights. You don't need to show all 15. Whether it's 15 or 25, because the judge may say 15, that's it. That's not very many. Instead, what you want to just do is highlight a few of them that talk about how great your product, your service is compared to competitors.
Okay. Maybe I don't know. I feel like there's a disconnect in what I'm asking versus the response. Like I'm not looking at the amount of numbers. I'm just throwing 15 out there as an example, but maybe somebody else can help me figure this out. But my point is, can we, if you're saying support and numbers, how do we tie them together?
By highlighting just a few of them to show proof of concept that you have customers who are excited about it, and because you only have so much space. But when I'm talking about the numbers, I'm talking about the financials. So I don't want you to lose sight of the fact that you have customers who are happy about this and that you're spending more emphasis on that than you are the financials. So the testimonial should just highlight the positive things about your business, your service that you're providing.
And I just add, say in your business plan, here's what my customers are saying. Here are some testimonials that my customers are saying. Something like that, you can bring it into your business plan. Hope that makes sense.
Yep. Okay. All right. Okay, good. So feel free to ask some other questions. If you have no sales, can you use competitor statistics, just a few to describe market-based and how you can be profitable in the same. Yeah, so like I was showing those, you can have benchmarks to show what competitors are doing and then how you would compare. again, we are not we're not determining whether to give money to your competitors, but to you. So what are your projections showing, and how does that compare with the benchmarks to your competitors? All right. I want to turn it back to Angela here to give us some guidance for dates coming up, things that you need to keep in mind. I'll take another question here. Should we keep the headers for each section? Yeah, keep the headers. Okay. This will be, again, when you put yourself in the shoes of the judges, all right, they're going to want to know, all right, what are we talking about next? What is this section talking about? So keep the headers in there. So it's easy for the judges to be able to follow along. Does font style matter? It doesn't really matter. Again, just make sure it's clear that, you know, think of yourself as the reader. Everything's presented in a format that's easy to read, easy to comprehend. So headers are always good. You know, it's all about the presentation, right? So make sure you present it in a professional way that others can comprehend it, because if they're not going to be able to comprehend it, that's going to be an easy one to judge. Angela?
Yes, and someone just said page numbers. Page numbers are good.
Yeah.
They are good to have page numbers. And so make a font that's nine points, because you want to fit a lot of information.
We're all getting older.
Yeah, the judges are on. So let's talk about how this is going to work. So again, Professor Sullivan, another great workshop. I do believe this is one of the a little bit harder to comprehend and not as you know, sexy as all the other ones. But great job again. So, but a lot of information. So how does this work? So this week, I'm going to send you a link it's going to be through Submittable, the same way that you submitted your intent to participate. So it's going to be a link that you're going to upload this 5 to 7 page business plan. It's usually a PDF. So if you do it in Word, make sure you change it into a PDF. So I will get that out to everyone who's interested in doing the competition. Now, as Professor Sullivan said, not everyone has to submit for the competition. And let's talk about that real quick. Can we talk about eligibility real quick, Dennis? Is that good? So I just want to make sure you guys have seen it throughout. You probably saw it on the intent to participate, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page. To be eligible for this competition, you have to be either a CCBC current or former student with at least 15 credits completed within the last 5 years, or be an alumni of CCBC from our credit department, or a non-credit graduate from a certificate/program in our non-credit field. Oh, great. Thanks, Dennis, for sharing that. Yeah, click on, go down. You're good. Go down. Yes, see, yep, right there. Yep, right there. Okay, awesome. Right there. And then eligibility requirements. And then you can do one more. Do the learn more. Okay, great. So we talked about the first two. Number 3 is a non-credit graduate of any program or certificate, or a student in the final year of a non-credit apprenticeship program. Now, before we even talk about if you have a business or not, if you have an idea or not, one of those conditions has to be met. So to be part of the competition. So make sure you have one of those. If you don't, then you won't be eligible for the competition. It's fine for these workshops and things like that, but you're not able to submit that 5 to 7 page business plan to begin the competition. Now, if you look at the other bullet below, it says those who already have a business started. That means you're bringing in revenue. You have money coming in, income. You have to be registered business in good standing with the state of Maryland, because you're doing business in Maryland, or your business is exempt, which means you're exempt because you're a proprietor or self-employed. Okay. Now your business can have less than $75,000 in annual revenue, and more than 2 full-time employees, and haven't been in business for more than 3 years. Now, you know what, that 75,000, I think that's the change. You guys have been seeing $100,000. I think we made that change. So it's really, let's keep it, whatever you guys been seeing at is let's keep it, have less than $100,000 in annual revenue. I will make that correction on there. But that was going forward. I think you guys have seen the 100,000. So let's keep it with that. So that's if you have a business, you have income coming in, that is the criteria. So, and then there's some, you know, you can participate individually or as a team, but at least one team member must be, you know, have that eligibility requirement, meet one of those conditions at the top that we talked about. And the eligible team member must either be an owner or a co-owner. That's very important of the business, or will be when you start the business, when the business is launched. So that's very important. So we don't want like the CFO, because they are an alumni, or, you know, but they're not the owner. So they can't talk about the business or what, you know, about the ins and outs, because that's your business. So that's why you have to be an owner or co-owner, you know, now with the business or when it's going to be launched. So
we get questions like this all the times. I got the EIN 10 years ago and only registered with Maryland this year. Am I eligible? So if you just started doing business this year, like making sales, then you're within that 3-year requirement. Now, if you have been in business where you are making sales for the last 10 years, you would not be eligible. And you know, because of COVID, we've seen this several times where people who have registered their business with the state or with the IRS and never done any business, even though they were registered. That's fine. You're still within that, and you're just starting to do business this year. You're still within that 3 years because you really haven't been in business until you start making sales.
okay.
Questions on that?
Yeah, that's very important because I check everyone, you know, criteria that, because this is a lot of money we're talking about. So we have to make sure, and I do, I also go back and make sure that everyone is what they say they are. I can look up a transcript and things like that.
Is annual revenue based on last year or projected this year? No, it's based on last year, what you actually did. Is the length of time business has been trying to get started or making sales weighed differently against those who are just starting out without any sales by the judges? So it's a good question. You know, are the judges looking at businesses and how much they're earning? Like, let's say companies earning $50,000 and you got another one earning $10,000. Are the judges going to look at that any differently? No. What they're looking at is more, well, what's the opportunity going forward? How well do we feel about this business owner taking this business to the next level? There have been cases where we've seen businesses who are earning more money not win because the judges didn't feel very confident that that person was really going to be able to continue with that business and didn't really have much of a plan for how they were going to grow it.
Okay, great. So I'm going to just keep going. So what's going to happen is, like I said, the lake is going to happen. I'm going to send it out this week. You'll look for it. You guys are going to be working on your business plan. So the due date to submit that business plan is November 13th at 11:59. So I always say, don't wait to the last minutes. You could have computer problems. When that clock strikes 12 and it's November 14th, I can't get a phone call or email. I said, I tried, it was my computer. I have to say sorry, and I had to say that in the past. So I don't want to be the bad guy. I don't like being a bad guy. So please don't wait to the last minute. You'll get many reminders from me. You guys can see my emails constantly. I always want you guys to be in the loop and not miss deadlines. So, and then what happens is, so after November 13th, we get everyone who submitted a business plan. It gets distributed within our faculty and staff. The first round of judging happens. We usually have 3 judges per business plan that review each business. We get they get their own business plans that they review. So each person's going to have 3 people review their business plans. We select the top 12 finalists, so they get marks, they get ranked. And the top 12 finalists are the ones that go to our Shark Tank rounds. They're the ones that compete in the final round in front of the judges for the chance to win up to $20,000 in seed money. Now, in the overview that I've mentioned many times for you guys to review, there are a lot of dates on there. So as you know, and those 12 finalists, I also send an email to say, make sure this is a commitment. In the month of January on Saturdays, we are working with professional coaches to help you guys with your pitches. You are work with mentors to work on one-on-one on expanding this business plan you're going to hand in to 12 to 15 pages. So there's a lot of work to be done if you're a finalist. Before, I always ask, you got selected, congratulations, but we need a commitment that you're able to do these dates, and the dates that are in the overview, you'll see them. So if you're selected, I will be saying you need to sign a commitment that you are committed to this process and being a part of a finalist in this competition. So take a look at those dates as well, because they're very important. We take this very seriously. We want you guys to do the best. That's why we get professional coaches to help you guys with your pitches, because we want you guys to excel. So this is very important to us as well. And so we want you guys to succeed. So that's the other thing that's going to happen. So key things, November 13th, check your email this week. I'll send you a link to submit your business plan, but you should be working on it. And again, don't wait till the last minute for November 13th.
The other cool thing about this is that many of the folks who have participated in the business plan competition have gone on to other competitions and won tens of thousands of dollars. One of our earlier winners, she's won a total of $65,000. Another one, Todd and Michelle, I don't know if you even know, they've won $55,000 in other competitions. And they're now with an accelerator group trying to get Series A funding. So this is often a launch pad for folks to participate in other competitions and investment opportunities.
Rodney, will the dates be online or in person? This will be virtual again this year.
Yeah.
We decided CCBC still has the mask mandate. It's hard to pitch with a mask on. We are going to be keeping this competition virtual.
And we also think that's better for you guys because for the finalists, we're going to be doing a lot of social media leading up to this. So you'll get more brand exposure as a result. I think I mentioned last time, we had over 25,000 people watching the awards on the final night. So we don't get that in person. So I think it's actually best for you that we do it virtually. Can they compete in other competitions with the same idea? Absolutely. Yeah, you could take this. That's exactly what people did. They took this same idea, participated in other competitions, and but they used everything that we taught here in those other competitions, and it worked. Well, the investors want a stake in the company. So we don't take a stake in anything that you're doing here. The judges don't take a stake in your company. So if you're participating in other competitions, they might. But our competition, we don't want anything to do with your company. We got enough work to do.
I do have to say, we don't give a blank check though either. So right. It's not like $20,000. We give you a check and we say, see you, good luck with that, you're on your way. You, if you win the $20,000, whatever the cash amount is, you work with Professor Sullivan and I to see what's the best way to spend this money. Like I said, you work closely with us. We have meetings, we have coaching meetings, and we talk about the best way to use this money for your business. So we don't give a blank check. We have something called a small business ownership program that we like our winners to go through if they haven't already. But yeah, it's a great opportunity. for you guys to, we don't let you go in an island. We're here to work with you. We're here to get you started or grow. And yeah, it's a good partnership.
Yeah, we don't want to spend that money on things like desks or chairs. We want to see you invest in that, use that money as an investment in your company to grow it. So we like to see it used for marketing. If you need to hire somebody, a graphic designer, we'll pay for that, part of that seed money. We want to use it for things that you need to grow your business, not to just pay the bills. We expect that you're in business, you should be able to cover your costs. So we want to see that money used so that you get 10 times the return on your investment. Shaniqua, question?
Yeah, so along the lines of spending and funding, I know that you said that you guys will guide and talk about what's the best investment for the money and how to utilize that. But is there like hard and fast rules as to what it can and can't be used for? And if so, is there a place to locate that?
Yeah, it's on our, you probably got it in your terms and conditions and disclosure. If you look on our website, you'll see disclosure, terms and conditions, and it's listed there.
Okay, I'll double check that. And then also for the actual final competition, I was looking back through my emails. I didn't see the date listed. Do you know when that will be?
So it's on February 4th.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Saturday, February 4th is the final round.
Perfect. I got worried. I'll be, I'm doing a study abroad program in Brazil in March. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, so this is February. I'll save the date. Thank you.
So here's the page with the terms and conditions. And so here we have some examples. Now we're willing to work with you. So just going back to our mobile car detailing guy, he needed a truck to be able to get to clients. He needed the equipment. And normally that's not something we would pay for, but that's what he needed to get his business off the ground. So that's what we spend it on. So, here's some examples: market research, list services, signage. You see a lot of things around marketing because you're going to get a return on that. Examples of funds may not be spent on: legal fees, salaries, computers, software, vehicles. These are just sunk costs. We're not going to get any return on that. But if you need to pay an attorney for something to get your business off the ground, then we'll cover that.
Right. And we have, right. These may not be spent on. Doesn't mean we haven't.
Right.
Correct.
Exactly. Shandell, question?
Right. So I was just listening to the ones that you said you possibly would not do as far as software stuff, because my company, like I said, is a sync licensing company. So we do music, production, we do instrumentals, we do scoreboards, scores, things of that nature. So
every company is different. And again, we'd work with you on that. We just want to make sure, because if you're going to spend $10,000 on that and you win $10,000, is that the best? Do you have to have that in order to, for you to grow your business? If so, yes, let's spend it on that. If not, then maybe we could spend it someplace else that's going to get you a better return.
Okay. Understood. Okay.
Yeah. All right. And again, everything is on our website.
Eileen's asking, what about future education? Example, class on QuickBooks. So funny you say that. We do have those classes as well. CCBC provides those classes. So there is a lot of here for small businesses on classes of QuickBooks and marketing and things like that. So yeah, there is future education available.
Yeah. At the end of the day, our funders want to support you. So we try everything we can to do that. And give you an example, during COVID, we found that a lot of our businesses were getting hit.
I'm so sorry.
We found that a lot of our folks that we work with from past years were having to shut down because of COVID. So we spent $50,000 helping people pay their car bills, their car loan, their rent, just to keep the doors open. We had to make an exception just because people needed to pay their bills and keep the roof over their head during COVID. And we spent $50,000 giving money back to all of our past winners after they had won all this other money. We gave that in addition to them to help them stay afloat. So there's no hard and fast rules here. We're trying to do what's best for your business, and we understand everybody's going to be in a different position. And so that's why we don't want to make hard and fast rules. We want to have some flexibility. All right, folks, I want to wish everybody the best of luck here. I hope everybody's excited, not too overwhelmed. You know, we're looking forward to seeing your ideas come together in these business plans. We're looking forward to seeing you take this next step in your journey. And we're excited for you. So if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me or Angela or both of us. We'd be glad to provide any guidance you might need. We're always here. And if you're not ready this year, no problem. All right, that's not a problem. Well, we're here. We'll be here for the next 10 years. All right. So,
no kidding.
So, you know, we're here to support you, and we have tons of other stuff going on. We have a Think and Grow seminar on November 17th on how to use LinkedIn as a business tool. Everybody on this call should be on LinkedIn. I don't care if your customers are not on LinkedIn, you can do business on LinkedIn. You can find partners, you can find vendors, you can find people to support you. Everybody here should be on LinkedIn, using LinkedIn, and you should be on that meeting on November 17th to how to use that. Far and away, LinkedIn is the most powerful thing I use to help grow this thing. And every business owner needs to be on there using it. And to find out how to do that, tune in November 17th. We'll send you out a link so you can get registered for that. It's free, it's online, and hopefully you have some ideas here to help grow your business and see how you can use things like social media, which are all free, to continue to grow.
Yep, you all got the flyer, but I'll resend it. And yes, please register. We'll do the playback if you can't make it that evening. It's a free, webinar. There's no reason no one should register for that workshop. So make sure you guys do that.
And we'll have the playback if you can't make it.
Correct.
And we'll send out this playback as well so everybody has it.
Correct.
All righty, folks.
Good luck, everyone. Try your best. Proof of concept. Remember that. And reach out if you guys need us. Right,
thank you. Good night, everybody. Good luck.
Good night.
Good luck.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela.